Thank you so much, Justin. There are sparkly brilliant people, and there are quietly brilliant people. Brandon is one of the quietly brilliant people. I think of Brandon as an ambassador to soil, to farming, to healthy food, and to what is possible when you teach people about all of those things. We first met 4 or 5 years ago when I volunteered with an urban agriculture program at Martin Luther King High School in East Oak Lane. The students that were in the program were people with various cognitive and physical disabilities. And I watched Brandon and his gift of connecting with everyone, meeting them where they were, figuring out what they could contribute, and how he could introduce them to the everyday miracle of growing your own food. Thank you so much, Brandon, for being here with us this morning. You're up.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I am blown away at that introduction. I was not expecting that. Thank you so much, Laura. As a side note, yes, Laura and I met 4 or 5 years ago. I was then working for a local nonprofit organization with the mission to inspire people to grow, cook, and eat healthy foods. And so I now have transitioned over into a new role with a new organization that is freshly minted as a nonprofit. So as COO of the Philadelphia enterprise that we're starting up, it's called Farmer John. I'm helping to oversee program development and also fundraising and general admin day-to-day systems. And so one of the things I just wanted to say is, first of all, farming is so much removed from the everyday lives of so many people. And we have a job to do in this country to reinvigorate what it means as urban agriculture. One of the things that became clear to me when I first started working with Krista at this new enterprise was that she's like, we're not going to do things as they've always been done, And so there's so much more work to be done. And we have so much more to learn, and we have so much more connection to do with the land. And so I'll just say that, a general overview, Farmer John is a for-profit side and a nonprofit side. And so on the for-profit side, there's an announcement that was made just this week about a store opening up, garden center for people to, have access to houseplants, but also to outdoor plants and vegetables and all that stuff. And then on the nonprofit side, I'm here to help create access overall for all people. And so what that looks like is having us meet folks where they are and also having folks come to where we are. So we're based right now with a farm, 5 acres in Elkins, PA. Melrose, some people know it as Melrose, right outside the city limits in Cheltenham, basically. And so we've already started doing programming with the city of Philadelphia through PowerCore. And so they're kind of run by AmeriCorps, but we've been working with them for a couple of weeks now. And so they're basically a small group of like 10 to 15 adults who, some of them have had criminal justice issues, and some of them have not, but primarily Black and brown folks who are trying to, one, make some money. Yes, and I knew you were going to know when I said PowerCore who I was talking about there. But basically, we've had a lot of people like those groups who see the work that we're doing, and Laura is one of them as an ambassador to Farmer John, I feel like, and saying, we love the work that you do. How can we help? And so that's just how we've been able to grow. And so talking a little bit about how this connects to folklore, I think that the way that I connect to that word, and when I was thinking about like, what does this really mean, and how does it assimilate into the organization of Farmer John? I think it's so deeply intertwined that we don't even say it, right? Because when we talk about destigmatizing the soil for Black and Brown populations, when we talk about connection to the earth for all populations, when we talk about how food access, food justice is important. What does that look like, for different populations of people, and how have they been removed or not removed, how those lineages still carry through of cooking with a grandmother or a great grandmother, and how they were preparing a meal. There's so many good books out right now that are being produced by Black chefs and Black sociologists and people who've been working with the land or connecting with Native Americans and also Black people through slavery, and tracking how that all works, and what's been carrying forward. And so, I'm happy to be in a place right now where I work with people who are much smarter than me. And so I have people who who worked on High on the Hog, not hit a name drop, but they're good friends of Krista. And so Chef Omar Tate has been helping to kind of put us together as a package, and make us aware of the connection of food being prepared for families and individuals, what those food types are, but also how we can help to grow those foods and connect with people to come out to our land and say, here's the history behind it, and how we also are going to start to prepare them differently, or at least adapt them a little bit so that they're able to be reintroduced into our families and individuals when they cook at home. Because one of the things that I worked on at Food Mike's in my last job, I realized that we made a pretty significant investment in helping people not only to grow food, but also to have access to food when they left our programs. We dealt with a lot of transient individuals and populations, and that happens to be something really popular that you'll see across nonprofit programming period across the nation. So a lot of times you'll interact with a person or persons over a period of time and say, okay, I'm successful, they've graduated my class, what's next for that set of people? And so, when we're trying to really change systems-based change, we're talking about connecting people to connecting back to their heritage, right? And I think that one of the things I liked yesterday, I was at a dinner last night with, I wish they were actually, I told them about this today, but they are interior designers that's Black led, and they are equity based. So they only work with low income or affordable housing partners. They don't even call them clients, because they're trying to change the narrative of what it means for how you think about a space and how it encompasses the personality for people who are entering that space. And so Farmer John naturally wanted to work with them. So they're working with us on designing our office space and our welcoming space, and how that looks for the people who come to our space. We want it to be intentional about how, they think about not only the Farmer John brand, but they came to us and said, this is a rich history of this land. How can we help you translate that for the populations that you're interacting with? And so they came to us and they said, this is Lenape land, first of all. That was the first thing they said. Let's recognize that. And that was so important, because here we are on a 50-acre estate that was built during the Gilded Age by a rich white man and his family. I mean, 2 of the people in his family died on the Titanic. It was a summer retreat. They were railroad tycoons. And so, to talk about that story of where this started, who this land started with, is so important, right? Because we need to be sharing that story with everyone at the beginning. And then, the story goes, after that all transpired and the family died off and they left the property, it then went to nuns. And so they used it as a retreat space and also as a retirement space for the nuns. And so it became a place of safe space, but also more so rest is the theme. It's about rest. It's about, what's another word? Looking at how the space could present an opportunity to grow. And I mean that literally and figuratively, because, obviously they were growing food, they had a greenhouse and things of this nature, but their story too is so rich because, you know, these are folks who are, peaceful, and also about helping to connect people to whatever their mission was. I don't know, but they were really about that connection, and they were inviting. All the neighbors that I spoke to say they loved having them there. So it's been about 10 years that they've been gone. But basically what I'm trying to say is the stories that we hear and we learn about, we try to bring that into our brand and try to say, well, how does this connect with where we are? Our neighborhood in Elkins, they all support us, not because we come and brandish and say, we want to start a business and we want to do X, Y, and Z, but because we ask, well, how do we fit into this community? What can we do? And so we're looking to do that everywhere we go. I mean, we are going to be lifting up some new projects in a lot of vulnerable communities, marginalized communities in Philadelphia. It's not been made a public announcement yet, but corner stores. Here's another thing, like the Poppy store and all those connotations that come around that. What does that actually mean for a lot of neighborhoods? It means that this is the primary source of food. And so this has become like within the last 50 years to 70 years, a new vehicle for people to get access to food. So one of the things that's so interesting is that culture for Black and Brown people has changed dramatically. And so when we think about how things have transpired, we don't like to do a rapid removal of a access point for people. We could easily say poppy stores are a problem for a lot of neighborhoods because of the low nutrient dense foods that are there. But instead of saying that, we say, well, how about we add another vehicle for access? And so, many people have talked about how to get grocery stores into neighborhoods, but how about thinking a little bit bigger and more broader about that? What about if you had a, what we're calling I can't give you the full name yet, but it's called redefining the corner store. And so thinking about how you would have a container on a piece of land that adjacent to that would have some lettuce and some kale and collards and things of that nature, so that you're having a couple of things happening here. Local food production, when people see it, they'll ask what's going on here, right? Because that's how removed we are from those systems. And so we want to introduce these new things into our culture. That's why we say agriculture is the culture, right? Because we want to identify that these things are missing in our communities, first of all. Second of all, we also want to be able to do soup, salad, sandwiches, all the S's, right? Because these are things that are fast and easy to make. And also we currently find that, we're not trying to remove junk food. We're just trying to introduce healthy new foods or healthier new foods. And so when you're growing those things, you can easily make ready to eat products that could be going into these neighborhoods, and also hiring local populations. Everything still is primarily done through word of mouth, so if you can trust your friend or neighbor or someone to say, hey, I just went down to this new place to go grab something to eat, you might more so be willing to go and try that thing. And so we want to do that throughout the city of Philadelphia and really host a space that is reflective of each of these different microcultures, hyper-local community settings that we can do throughout our neighborhood. And also, I will add that we're working with program designers who will help us to infuse As I was saying before, the Lenape um, 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 learnings and styles into our programs, we had someone approach us who is really interested in helping us connect how like Winga Hocking would have been a trail, and you know, you have like Tulpa Hocking, like these are places like in streets that are right around the corner from us, and we want to infuse some of those the history there into our programming. And so I would just finish with this. We don't always understand what we don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. But we are so much more richer than just ourselves when we have a combined of many. And so it's really about us working together and learning the stories and connecting the ways of multiple, so that we can bridge the divide that exists in the agricultural world. It's much bigger than the context of what we've been currently speaking about for the last 10 to 20 years, about greening spaces and cooking with local foods. It's much bigger than that. Agriculture is the culture means that it's infused into all of the ways that we go about our days. Everyone here eats, everyone here is wearing clothes, everyone here is probably at their desk. All these things are made with agriculture. And so once we've learned how to remember to say, hey, do I know my farmer? Hey, do I know my clothier? Hey, do I know my restaurateur? Hey, do I know that chef? Like, we need to start infusing our ways around agriculture that mean more than just the big conglomerates that run our day-to-day ways of existing. And so that's primarily what I'm here to try to do, and also create an economic means for people to have self-reliance and also sustainable ways of living. And so that's my goal. Any questions and answers?
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much, Brandon. I didn't know I'd be traveling from the Lenape to the Titanic and to the convent and the nuns' rest home. I feel like that could be an opera or a mini series or all of the above. And it sounds like there are future chapters unfolding very, very soon. So yeah, we do have some time for questions, and I invite people to either type them in the chat or just hop off the mute and ask away.
Morning, all. I don't have a question, more of a statement and just a confirmation. Just growing up in first in New York City and now living in Philly, the poppy stores or bodegas have been staples um, in my life, and so and in the neighborhoods I live in. So I think it's a great idea to not try to replace them, but to work with them to enhance the food availability, the healthy food availability, um, sort of in these neighborhood anchors. And you know, it's not a lot, but some of them do have some healthy foods like plantains and potatoes and other things, but it could be more. So just I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, to actually build on your idea, Alan, Brandon, could you talk about a little bit more about really like how you said you're, redefining the corner store, and like, can you speak on like building this, I don't know, like economical, social, economical, nutritional last mile from your neighborhood or local farming to these corner stores?
Yeah, so to get into a little bit more detail, we know that the last mile is always hard for food access in the nonprofit and for-profit world, actually, primarily because of transportation costs, primarily because of just human resource capital. Also, urban dense cities aren't technically always built for growing healthy foods. And so we have to create that system. Now, what we've seen is a proliferation of how there could be community gardens, could be more gardening happening in cities. Unfortunately, what we run into is gentrification, where those systems that we're building are butting right up against primarily, and this is just what it is, middle class or higher, college graduated folks who have access to these community gardens and do kick out a lot of Black and brown populations out of those systems for various reasons. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable anymore and growing. You have a lot of Black and brown people who migrated up south and are dying off, and so they're not in those places anymore. And the lineage, the generational shift doesn't carry forward where younger generations are continuing to do that. And so, talking about folklore, it's kind of muted. Agriculture has become kind of muted for a lot of marginalized communities. And so what we have to do is have kind of like a reawakening and saying, wait, what's going on here? And so these corner stores are really meant to be like, bam, in your face, because without that, you kind of are continuing along with the notion that more community gardens means more fresh food access. But then you have to ask yourself, well, who is that for? And so we have to shift a little bit and make sure that, those community gardens are a staple and should always be a staple for the neighborhoods. And I'm not against that, but we also need to make sure that people have an economic means. And so how you go about doing that is to meet people where they are. I say, put it up on Instagram, put it up on TikTok, put it up on a website, go on people's door, knock. I'm old fashioned, community organizer. We got to meet people at the Poppy store and pass out flyers and say, hey, this thing is happening down the block. Are you interested? How do you want to support this? How do you want to help? Right. And then also we have to fashion ourselves, because I'm now in the fundraising spirit. I've only dealt with programming, and so what I need to start making sure is community-centered fundraising. We always talk about high net worth donors, and we always talk about the old system that's been working for so long, but we have to ask ourselves, why is it really working? Because we don't allow ourselves to be as creative in that system as we really could be. So that's how we kind of change into this new system to get the capital necessary to have folks as we would need to create a system like this for this to work. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think Joe had a question.
Hi, yeah. Brandon, thank you so much. This is such cool work, and I'm really excited, especially I just a really great perspective shift. I had never really thought of that whole dynamic with community gardens and gentrification before playing into this problem. So I really appreciate that extra knowledge and understanding the scope of the work. Something that you mentioned, I think, is really interesting, and I'd love to hear more about kind of like your inspiration or things that you've worked on before that ties into it. Is you mentioned kind of targeting some of these like the corner store add-ons as being like flavored in a way that's kind of like hyper local to the community. I'd love to hear more about examples where you saw that kind of work in practice, or like kind of what you're looking to like kind of create that feeling for different communities.
Well, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I met Krista only a couple months ago, my new boss basically only a couple months ago. And when she told me about the idea, I said, whoa, because there is nobody doing that. I mean, what I'm trying to do is to honestly, to be quite frank with everyone here, is to bridge the gap that exists. There's a couple of things. First of all, there are no Black and brown led organizations in urban populations. There's some in rural. I want to be really clear, but there's no one teaching urban residents how to grow food. Black and brown led. You'll find plenty of white led organizations and institutions that exist. You'll find Black organizations that exist statewide, and they focus on a mix of rural and suburban. You'll find you'll even find white-led institutions where Black and brown people are teaching urban residents how to do growing and gardening and all those things that fashion the type of system that we need to change. But the problem is most people, if you ask them, people of color kind of do better sometimes when there's a person who looks like them, or a person who can relate just a little bit more to being in the arena that they've grown up in. And so what we're trying to do is, if we get the chance, is to connect with those folks and let them know that, like, hey, we're here, we're doing this. Would you like to learn more, first of all? And if so, how can we bring you into the fold? And when I mean we're for everyone, I really do mean that, because we're not trying to segment the learning, but we're also trying to capture the folks that generally don't have the same type of access. And then also, you were speaking about the corner store. So in relation to how that looks, with the communities, we just don't have that type of example to look at. Now, there's different versions of this happening. I think people have had ideas about something like this happening. There's a couple of cost factors that you have to take into play to make this a successful financial viable option. But unfortunately, there's examples of nonprofits working to push more healthy foods into currently existing corner stores and bodegas and poppy stores, as Alan was speaking about. So those options do exist. But the reason that we even got here is because before I started with Krista at Farmer John, she actually did an experiment. And so she went to multiple corner stores all throughout the Northwest. We call it Uptown here, and in Philadelphia. And she kind of said, hey, I'm Krista, I'm a farmer, and I'd like to know if you'd be interested in selling some fresh food, some of my products, or even other farmers' products, everybody, just to have some more available options. And they all said no. And so the reason is because their margins are based upon getting it cheaply somewhere else. They already have their vendor, giving that to them for a price, and also they're not interested probably in selling other things that they just don't know if they would sell or not. So, that's kind of just where we are, and we got ourselves into this, but that doesn't mean that we can't create new, right? So that's what I'm really interested in testing out.
Trailblazers.
Yeah, trying. Thank you.
That's very cool. And I love the philosophy that you're bringing to it of additive, not deleting. I've heard people say, we don't have food deserts, we have food swamps. Like, there's
my
food
thing.
there. There's food there.
Yeah.
People are there and they're eating food, but what's the food that's available? What do they know how to prepare? What do they have time to prepare? Do they have the tools that they need? So you can't just show up and, build your giant supermarket or whatever it is and expect, okay, it's fixed now. So I really appreciate that. What kind of hurdles have you run into with that so far? Or is it too early days to know?
It's too early days to know, but I can tell you what I expect to happen. One is I think there's going to be more interest than we're able to supply, for the simple reason of funding in the beginning. The interesting thing about this, and maybe I can chat offline with Alan about this a little bit later. Maybe he knows some more. I don't know, but unfortunately, when I say we've got ourselves into this system, I mean we really have dug our feet in and been like, this is what we want. And so it's like, as a capitalistic society, we have to think about how we unroot some of these pathways and create more pathways for other options. And I mean that in the funding arena, because currently there is no funding, specific funding, that is for, as much as it exists in other ways, for supermarkets. Supermarkets get funding all day, every day, to go into a low area community and create a grocery store. And, that's for a multitude of reasons. And then those grocery stores are created, people are hired, jobs are created, food access is there. But when you look at the list, there are probably 1,000-page list of all the things that they're selling. And then you talk about food access, you're really talking about a very few minority or less options for fresh food. I've even seen, you've seen it too, not trying to, I don't want to be sued. So, but like you go into certain new, like these corner stores that replace, grocery stores that replace Bottom Dollar, and you'll see a corner of like vegetables and stuff. And that's probably going to be like the size of what we'd be doing too. But the issue I have with that is that they're not helping to work with local farmers to supply those products. And also sometimes the quality or quantity, not the quality, sorry, the quantity doesn't range as much as it would if you go to a higher net worth neighborhood. So that's kind of one of the hurdles that we might run into in terms of funding, is that the current funding is geared towards supermarkets, not something like this.
Thank you. Do you have time for another question or two? I know you have a busy schedule this morning.
Yeah, I was telling you, I got to go pick up these vegetables for a program that we're doing tomorrow. So,
Right.
yeah, right in our back neighborhood. I always forget you're from mine area. You're in mine area with you, like around the corner. So,
I am.
yeah.
I am. Anybody else have a question or comment? Thank you so much, Brandon, for being here with us this morning. I learned so much, and I'm so excited to see what happens next. And it's, in terms of the busy season, I feel like farmers are almost always busy. So where are we in that cycle?
We're gearing up. Krista has been running a CSA. So Farmer John, one of the for-profit sides, the CSA, and that is expected to start in June. So we have a little bit more time before we actually gear up for that. But I will say we're trying to plan that out now and get things growing and just get a feel of the land. This is the first year that we're on Elkins. We're brand new. So this is 5 acres. It's going to be undertaking to get started here, but we're really trying to just make sure that we take the time. We're not rushing into this because this is a community venture, and we want to be here for a long time to come. So this is just takes time. It takes no rush.
Yeah, well, I hope you get some of those good peaceful nun vibes, the retired nun vibes.
Yes.
I hope that brings a blessing to the Elkins Park location. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I did put the Farmer John website in the chat. And for those who are new to Creative Mornings or to Philadelphia, or are not new in either way, we are looking for some new host committee members. So if you are interested in joining this very talented, esteemed, and personable group, Jelani is our newest host committee member, and we are open to others. So please get in touch. And this video will be posted. JG usually is very quick with this, but definitely in the next week or so.
Probably today. Get a clear schedule, so probably get this up today.
And please share it with your friends.
Thanks, everyone.
Great to see you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Check out Farmer John Philly Instagram. That's where you'll see all the newest updates. Make sure to follow. Everything is posted on there, and we update it very often. So awesome, interesting stuff going on there. You'll actually see some new stuff hopefully coming within the coming week. If you're interested in farming or gardening, make sure to keep a lookout in the next week. Some cool stuff coming up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.